So the first kind of nasakh is what people understand as nasakh and what is common in people's mind. But there's two other. There's the second one is when you take the verse out, or Allah takes the verse out.
But we know of this verse, and then Allah.
Yes, and the example that they give you of this is if you know how when you nurse, when women nurse another woman's baby, then the child that is nursing with her at that time becomes the brother or the sister of the baby.
Right.
Supposedly there's a verse that says the cutoff is 10 times, to nurse 10 times. But that verse was supposedly, again, retracted from the Quran, and the hukm of 10 was retracted from the Quran, and then there's a hadith that says now it's 5. Okay, you find this alien, and I personally, since I don't prescribe to the whole concept of Nestor and supposed to be good, I'm not traumatized by it. But what I find is a full-blown problem, to say the least, is the third category, in which Allah took the verse out, but kept the hukm. It's problematic, right?
Right.
And it's more interestingly enough is it's about the stoning. It's about the one hukm in the Quran that doesn't exist in the Quran. It's about the one hukm that doesn't exist in the Quran, and it was problematic for people to accept. So if you want to be a little bit critical thinker, you might think, well, was someone trying to make it look like it came from the Quran through this whole process of nasikh and mansukh. In any case, the point to the story is, you find it as a contradiction. Maybe someone deeply entrenched in the paradigm is not going to find it as a contradiction, because they're conditioned to accept this. The only way you can accept something like this is you get conditioned time and time again. But if you're exposed to it for the first time, your initial reaction is negative, to say the least, and you're not going to accept it easily. But if I condition you every day to accept it, maybe there is a time where you can accept it. But if you're not conditioned to accept it, then you're going to seek out resolution to the contradiction, and you're not going to find one. You're going to find extremely weak answers to this. But this is the concept of the anomaly. Any paradigm, because it's an idealized version of reality in someone's head, or a group of people, or a society, or generations of a society, because it's an idealized version, sooner or later, you're going to find contradictions. And those contradictions are, I'll give you an example of a contradiction from the Shia. Okay? Wasn't the axiom of Imamism saying that you need an imam to protect the faith, because there's always ongoing circumstances? Just like you need a prophet to deliver the faith, you need an imam to protect the faith. Well, okay, so the 11th imam died, and supposedly there is a 12th imam, and supposedly he is in hiding, right? And supposedly he's been in hiding for 1,200 years. I'm not going to talk about whether there's actually a human being that is alive for 1,200 years. I'm not going to even go there. But I'm gonna test the initial premise, the initial paradigm. You said there should be an imam to protect the faith. Well, what am I doing with an imam that is pouting somewhere and hiding somewhere for 1,200 years and doesn't want to come out? Did he fulfill his role that you try to box people in with your initial premise? What is the value of an imam if he is in hiding? That is a contradiction. They don't have an answer to it. They may give you an answer, but it's not going to be convincing unless you're conditioned, again, time and time again. You talk to a Shia person, and as much as this concept is problematic to you and me, they may not see it as problematic. So we talked about what is a paradigm, we talked about why, we talked about structures, we talked about axioms, we talked about anomalies. Then I want to talk about the life cycle of the paradigm. Eventually, first of all, because a paradigm is an idealized version, when you try to project it on society, you never, ever can encompass 100% of all the minds of that society. There's always going to be outliers. There's always going to be outliers, and I'm going to talk about those outliers in a minute. But eventually, when those anomalies, and I'm talking about paradigm in general again, not talking about. Eventually, when those anomalies pile up and pile up and pile up, what happens to the paradigm? It becomes dysfunctional. When your paradigm doesn't work 50% of the time, it becomes dysfunctional. When it doesn't work 70% of the time, it becomes dysfunctional. When it's not helping you in your experiments, when it's not helping you in your papers, when it's not helping you in your, in organizing society, when it's not helping you in your political life, when it's not helping you in your economic life, it becomes dysfunctional. So what happens is, as anomalies accumulate, those outliers, which when the paradigm was strong, when the paradigm was prevailing, when the paradigm was functional, those outliers are dismissed. They're ridiculed, and they're expelled. They're filtered out. Those, if they can actually provide solution to the anomalies that recreates the paradigm in a more functional way, all of a sudden, boom, a new paradigm is created, and people, because it's functional, they're going to subscribe to it. And the old paradigm is going to phase out. Usually it doesn't phase out because people are convinced of the new paradigm, by the way. It phases out because younger people subscribe to the new paradigm gradually, and the older people die out. Populations are repopulated, regenerated. Old die, and all their old ideas die with them, and the new come, and then the new becomes the dominant paradigm, and you establish paradigm. That is the life cycle of the paradigm. And that transition, and this is a key point, has to be gradual. If that transition doesn't happen in a gradual fashion, you'll fracture society. Don't think that you're going to convince older people of something new. It's not going to happen. Maybe it'll happen to few here and there that are open-minded and critical thinkers. But as a bulk, generally if people grow old in a particular paradigm, they're going to die with it. So, you need to focus on the new. And the whole process of generation replacement will take care of the rest. That is a gradual, that is the safe way. The people that running forward, that are basically accepting everything Western society has to offer, that are just copying and pasting, they don't understand this. That's why when you introduce a solution into society that is extremely foreign to it, and you create such a negative feeling, you're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to fracture society. So, in my personal opinion, the transition has to be balanced between the old and the new. Don't try to completely suppress the old. Just, gradually, keep them balancing each other. Let the new not go too fast by the influence of the old, and let the old not die out too fast by the influence of the new. That way society transitions in a safe fashion. Then the last thing I want to talk about is the concept of outliers, because I think it's important, and it goes to the heart of how information is created and understood in a society. Information doesn't necessarily mean the truth. Any paradigm that is strong, well established, has a particular set of beliefs, particular set of ideas that are kosher, that are understood. It's an orthodoxy that is accepted. And as you go out of the paradigm, that what's accepted start falling off. Invariably, because there is a large body of people subscribing to the paradigm, what does that create? That creates an authority around the paradigm. And that authority, not a conspiracy theory or anything, it's human nature. That authority tries to protect itself. Any power structure that is the guardian of the paradigm, any power structure that is the guardian of the paradigm, because it has so many people subscribing to it, is going to do what every power structure does in existence about any topic you could imagine. It's going to protect itself and try to spread more. That's what power structures do. But then you have outliers that don't subscribe to the paradigm. So what do they do to them? They filter them out, they discredit them, they ridicule them, they punish them. And this is exactly what Quraysh did to Prophet ﷺ when he came in. He came in with new ideas.
What is Quraysh?
Quraysh is the tribe of the Prophet. He came in with new ideas. Quran says, what did they call him? They called him Majnun, crazy. They called him Sha'ir, a poet. They called him Kahin, a priest. They called him, all these names that need to discredit him and ridicule him and try to steer people away from him. So this is important. So inevitably, and I think we all feel this on an intuitive level, inevitably, as you try to reevaluate the Islamic epistemology, you're going to have friction with the power structures of the established paradigm. So you need to know how to navigate that, because otherwise, if you don't know how to navigate it, you're not going to be well heard, and eventually, if you're not well heard, then the dysfunction has to decay further and further and further until the narrative of that particular structure doesn't have audience anymore, and then people start looking for a new paradigm. So this is more about the social aspect of how transition between paradigms happen, but I thought it was interesting to mention.
Okay. I think we should stop here.
Okay.
Yeah.